Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the fourth and final STU meeting of 2022. For those that haven't been with us before, welcome. We hope you enjoyed today's meeting. For those that have been with us for some time, welcome back. So just to note, as Zoom has informed you, the meeting is being recorded, and you also have the ability to control transcripts. So Jay, why don't you go to the next slide and we can go over Zoom logistics before I officially pass it off to you. So we've all been Zooming for many years now, but we want to highlight some features that'll help us engage and participate today. So feel free to rename yourself. I recommend adding your name, pronouns if you like, and your affiliation. For enabling or turning off the transcripts, you can go to your more buttons at the bottom of your screen, and it allows you to control the transcripts there. Next slide, please, Jay. Other logistics, we will be asking for feedback at certain points of this agenda, so feel free to raise your hand or use the chat box. Being virtual is rough. We love seeing faces, so feel free to turn on your camera if you'd like, and unmute yourself when it's time for you to speak. If you're on the phone, I don't see any phone numbers, but just in case, if you're on the phone, you use *6 to mute or unmute and *9 to raise your hand. And next slide, please, Jay. And then finally, this is just kind of where to find things in Zoom. Your mute and unmute and your video are on the far left. You can rename yourself by clicking on the participants button and then finding your name in the list. And number 3, there's the chat if you want to provide feedback that way. And then the reactions button to raise your hand, or, more importantly, throw us an emoji of your choice. I guess with that, why don't we go to the next slide? Yeah, so for those that don't know me, my name is Anna Holder, pronouns are she, her. I am an environmental scientist with the State Water Board and the co-chair of this amazing work group with Jay Davis, who will take over in a moment. And before we dive into our agendas, we really like to take a moment to acknowledge tribal lands in California. The Cali PA building and the hub of this work group, and where I am physically sitting right now, is in a place that we now call Sacramento, California, which was and still is a gathering place for many local tribes who have lived throughout the Central Valley and the foothills for generations, and were the original stewards of these lands and waters. These people include the Nishinan, Maidu, and Miwok peoples, and the Putwin and Wintu nations. And these indigenous peoples have remained committed to the stewardship of this land since time immemorial. And it's important for us to recognize that our organization sits on the lands of indigenous peoples, and that we are here because of the sacrifices that have been forced upon them. And in acknowledging and remembering these communities in all of the work we do at the STU and at the water boards with SWAMP, we hope to honor their legacy, their lives, and their descendants. And if you're not sure of whose tribal land you're on, I highly recommend checking out nativeland.ca. It's a really great application. You can learn about different tribes and languages and all sorts of good stuff. Okay, next slide, please. Great. So now I'm going to pass it off to the other half of this work group. Jay Davis, take it away.
Thanks, Anna. Good morning, everybody. I'm Jay Davis with ASC, the Aquatic Science Center, also known as SFEI, San Francisco Estuary Institute. So let's go through the roll call, starting with the review panel members. I see at least one is on the call. So, Harry, that I'm looking at you right now.
I got myself unmuted there.
Okay.
Harry Ohlendorf here.
Thank you. Are Bruce or Chris on, Anna? Well, I guess they would speak up if they were. Okay, moving on to EPA. And I haven't heard that there's a replacement for Terry participating yet. So Terry Fleming retired recently. OEHA.
Wes Smith here with OEHA. Sorry, I was having issues with my buttons there.
No problem. Is that all from OEHA?
I think Tran Pham might be on. She mentioned she was going to try to join. But maybe that's later.
Okay. Do you see Tran, Anna? I'm in the presenting mode, so I can't see everything in the participant list or chat. So just as a heads up on that.
Yeah, I don't see her on the list.
Okay. Moss Landing.
Autumn Bottomo,
Billy Jekyll.
Lucas.
Chikawa. Wes Heim.
Great. Okay, we'll go through the regional boards. Region 1.
Yeah, Rich Fadness at Region 1.
Right, Region 2.
Christina Yoshida, Region 2.
3.
Melissa Doherty, Region 3.
4.
Emily Duncan, Region 4.
5.
Lauren Sutherman, Region 5.
Jordan Hensley, Region 5.
Angela Laban, Region 5.
Great. Region 6.
Hi, Lori Screeve, Region 6.
7. In case there are any muting issues, waiting a little bit. Region 8.
Heather Boyd, Region 8.
And Region 9.
Chad Laughlin, Region 9.
And Carrie Nagoda, Region 9.
Great. Okay, State Board.
Hi, Amanda Blackwell, the Ocean Standards Unit.
Is that all from the State Board? Anna?
Sorry about that. I was trying to
Ah,
get to the mute. Jennifer Salisbury.
great. Is that all from the State Board, Anna?
Yeah, oh, we've got Badia. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. A Civic Spark Fellow this year. My name is Badia, pronouns she, her. So thank you.
Welcome. Okay, Monitoring Council.
Nick Martiranos here.
Great. Okay, so if anybody hasn't been called yet, please add your name and affiliation into the chat. All right. So let's review the agenda. There's a lot of, this meeting is, not a heavy lift today. There's a lot of updates, and then some sort of logistical planning and looking at highlights to come in 2023 and 2024 and beyond. And there's a good chance this will go quickly. But does anybody have any time constraints on that would entail us needing to stick to the schedule, or anybody need to leave early?
This is Jennifer Salisbury. I'm gonna need to leave by 11:15.
All right. Well, we'll be through most of things by then. Maybe even, you know, further along than we anticipate. We should be partway through item 5 at that point.
Jay, this is Autumn. As you know, the Moss Landing crew has to leave by 11.
Right. Okay.
Which I would, this is Jennifer Salisbury again, which I would argue is that the tissue data part is probably, it sounds to me like it's all the tissue data people.
Yeah. So yeah, we have planned on that, so that should be okay. All right. On to item 2. So this is just a series of quick updates on things to make sure everybody knows what's going on with all the different balls that this work group has in the air. And it's always helpful to me to go in and update this, so I know the status of all the balls that we have up in the air. So starting with, you know, we go kind of year by year, and the earliest year that we're still working on is 2019. The Bass Lakes Panel 3 data report is nearing completion. And the thing that's holding it up is that we've had challenges setting up the subcontracts for our review panel members. I want to thank Harry for being very patient and doing a lot of legwork to line up insurance. So I won't go too far into this, but you know, due to the contract requirements, our peer reviewed panelists need to have insurance as subcontractors. And I'm not exaggerating. There's, I think, been at least 100 emails between me and the review panel members and SFEI admin on this. But Harry led the way in working out his arrangement. We're still working on the arrangements for Chris and Bruce. And hoping to also, Harry also has reviewed the data report. Want to get things squared away and get Chris and Bruce to review the report as well. So as soon as we get all that taken care of, which I think we're close to, we'll be able to finalize that report. For 2020, just as a reminder, we sampled 12 zones. There's a cruise report available on our website where all the cruise reports are available. There are 3 PCB samples that we're not totally sure on the latest status. Can you explain that a little bit, Autumn?
Sure. So these were 3 samples that actually couldn't cross the Canadian-US border as whole fish, so they had to go to a different facility for extraction. And the last time we checked, Ali Guerra from Babcock was going to let me know what she found out from SGS Access, and I just haven't heard from her. I don't think she's on the call. So
Autumn?
I expect that, yeah.
Could these be part of any of the files that were dropped on the FTP site?
No, I looked.
Oh, darn it. Okay.
Yeah, sorry. So she didn't really know where they were, but I suspect that they've been extracted and analyzed and just are waiting to be reported.
Okay. And then the report on this is not not imminent. We are going to produce a report on the whole coast survey in 2025, including Central Coast, which some of this sampling was Central Coast, and then we still have to do the North Coast, which we'll be doing in 2024. So we'll do a report on everything in 2025. Wes?
Hi, Jay. I just had a question about the stuff that's been collected in the Southern California. Do you know if that's been loaded up to Seedon or not, or what the status of that would be?
That's a very good question, and something I need to look into with Scorp. In the when we were planning the study, they did indicate that the data would be going up to Seedon, but I haven't. I don't. That hasn't happened, and I need to check in with Scorp on that. Does anybody know more about that than I do?
So one thing I can speak on is that if they load the data through Seedon, I will be the one who is actually loading the data. Like if they go through the Seedon portal, because Seedon is just Jarma Bennett. And they don't have a loader, so it actually has to go through Swamp. Unless Scorp pays Moss Landing to load the data.
Okay, so that's an action item.
Right, because Scorp doesn't have direct access to Seedon anymore.
Right. Autumn, do you know any more about that? And maybe remember things any better than me?
No, I don't, sorry.
All right, okay. But yeah, getting the data into Seedon is important for displaying data on the portal and for OER to be able to use the data for advisories.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah. Okay, 2021, that was Bass Lakes Panel 4. The lakes were sampled, cruise reports available, analyses have been completed, and the metals data have been processed by Jennifer. And I haven't had time to get my team and to start looking at them and to look at them myself, but they're ready for that. And then for the organics, we're still waiting on some data from the organics lab.
I did receive a bunch of data. It did not go through the regular way. It got dropped onto an FPP site about 3 weeks ago. And
yep, so we're
they're
still working
challenged
through that. Yeah.
Yes.
Thanks.
So the axis might be done with that. That's kind of detailed, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really in the weeds.
Okay.
If you'd like, we can have a meeting about this offline.
No, just want to make sure it keeps moving along, which I'm sure you're doing.
Yes, I'm working on it right now.
Oh, great. Well, make sure you pay attention to this meeting too. Just kidding. And then the report, as soon as, we can start working up the metals data. So I anticipate really getting going on this in the next, well, probably early January, maybe sooner, but we'll definitely be able to produce a draft and final report on this in 2023, since we're already ready to get going. Okay, Anna, the next bullets are yours.
Yeah, thanks, Jay. So we had a lot of other things to talk about today, so I wanted to keep the bioaccumulation monitoring program realignment and statewide tribal engagement updates really brief. We had our fifth meeting with the San Diego Advisory Committee back in October. We heard from Chad Laughlin and talked about some analysis priorities and decisions so that we can move forward on those things. We heard from Wes Smith on OEHA consumption advisory development processes and had a little bit of discussion around that. And then we also got a little bit more clarity on communication and outreach priorities for the advisory committee. So I'll be writing up a draft document of that over the next couple of months. We'll have our next meeting sometime in the second quarter of 2023, March through June, to be determined. And then finally, I attended and presented the Tribal EPA Region 9 Annual Conference a couple weeks ago. And we had a lot of great conversation and engagement from tribal government partners around this work and partnering with us in the future. So I expect to be following up with folks over the coming months with that. And that's about it. Thanks.
Great. Okay, so we always like to note the new consumption advisories that are usually based, at least in part, on our bioaccumulation monitoring program data. So Anna has listed the ones. We'll probably captured all of them. Let us know if not, Wes. And then we also want to highlight the protocol document that we have published that is super helpful for would be helpful for us and also any other programs or projects that are monitoring fish for human health related human health related goals. And I'll mention this a little bit more later when I talk about the monitoring plan for 2023. Wes, anything to add on our list of advisories?
No, looks like you got them all, and we are working on an update for both Castaic Lake and Pyramid Lake.
Great.
So those will be forthcoming in the next few months. They're not immediate, but.
So those are the next ones in line?
I think there's some other ones in line, but those are a little further down the road. I don't have the current list of what's coming out the next few.
Right.
But I just know.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Oh yeah, just Castaic and Pyramid are on the list.
Yeah. This reminds me that periodically in the past we've had Susan or others at OEI give a plan for upcoming advisory development and look for feedback from the work group. So that's we always appreciate being able to have that input. So as we think about agenda items for next year, I think it'd be good to look at when it would be a good time to do that again.
Sure, yeah, I think that's a good idea. I can definitely bring that up with Susan.
Great. Okay, TMDLs. Any of the folks involved in the TMDLs that we've been tracking, the rivers, Central Valley rivers, statewide mercury, any updates on those?
Well, that's me. Yeah, the TMDL for the rivers, it's, I guess, still in the works right now. We're really focusing on the Delta methylmercury TMDL, which bog data has been used for that a little bit, and also RMP data, of course. Right. So we're hoping to go to scientific peer review by the spring, and just continue developing that TMDL review. We're also kind of working on a Central Valley mercury strategy. So some of the data that was collected for the streams work this year, that's definitely going to feed into that overall mercury strategy of kind of where are we at with fish tissue concentrations and what work do we need to do maybe in the upstream areas. The statewide mercury control program for reservoirs, that's at the state board right now. Steve Camacho, Rebecca Fitzgerald, they're kind of leading that effort. So the regions, of course, will still be involved, but we're kind of waiting on them to take the next steps.
So is the Rivers TMDL part of the Mercury strategy?
Definitely, all the TMDLs are part of the overall Mercury strategy, but we're just trying to look a little broader at different actions that we can take, maybe focusing on mines and that kind of just more of the upstream sources and just more of a holistic approach to mercury controls in the Central Valley, maybe using some discretionary contracts for testing, maybe some pilot tests, or just kind of trying to get creative instead of just trying to develop TMDLs.
Mm-hmm. Is the Rivers TMDL still something that you're planning on doing?
We're kind of scoping it out still. So it's, we're a limited unit, and I'm also working on the tribal beneficial uses project. So my time stretched really thin. And right now, like I said, we're kind of putting all of our eggs in the Delta methylmercury TMDL basket for the TMDL development part of the unit. So it's
all right,
it's still hanging out there.
All right, yeah, just want to make sure we know what's going on.
Thanks. Yeah.
Okay. Monitoring Council. Any updates or things to note there?
Thanks, Jay. Nothing groundbreaking. There's our last meeting is on December 1st. As most of you may or may not be aware, Mark Golds left OPC 6 weeks or so ago, which left a hole, the co-chair position for the council. So we're working on trying to fill that. And I've been spending a lot of time with the National Monitoring Council meeting, which is a separate but linked entity, and they're having their big conference next April. I think I saw a couple abstracts from this group in there, so I'm working a lot on abstract review and program development there. So those are the kind of major updates from me.
What are the abstracts that were submitted for the national meeting?
I haven't seen them all. There's like 500. I've only reviewed a couple. I've reviewed one that our very own Anna had written. That's related to the work that she's done with the realignment. And I don't know if they were necessarily written, but there's some I saw from San Francisco Bay and impacts to the Olympia mussel. I saw that. I don't know if there's anybody on this group, but I did see that abstract. And a couple others that I can't remember off the top of my head, but I did see a few within the bioaccumulation sphere in California.
Great, and glad to hear. And I may have forgotten about this, but that Anna, that you were submitting an abstract for that.
I've also sent a few updates to the list for some a fish forum. I hadn't seen this before, but it's a fish specific conference that I think they're accepting abstracts now. I've sent out a few email blasts to the STU Workgroup email list. So if there are other research topics that you wanted to talk to the fish folks directly, not necessarily the larger monitoring community, that's an opportunity. I think they just extended their abstract submission too, but that seems like a really cool. It's called the something fish forum.
Yeah, I've never been part of that, but I know OEHA has in the past been active with that meeting, and I think it's definitely a good meeting for the kind of work we're doing. I thought, I've been super busy and saw that deadline come and go. I thought it passed, but maybe it sounds like they've extended it.
Yeah, I think yesterday they sent out an email extending it. I can try to just dig it up, but
yeah, I think I mainly have been seeing your emails forwarding that info. So thank you for doing that. West, is OEHA still active with that meeting?
Yeah, I've never been to it because that predates my time in the fish group, but I put in an abstract for this session, so we should be there, or we will be there.
Yeah, so just in case folks haven't connected the dots, the National Fish Forum is the first bullet in the other updates from the group portion on this slide, and the link to the registration was added in the agenda. It'll be completely virtual this year over the course of a couple of weeks. And folks probably haven't heard about it because I think it's been 2 or 3 years since they've held it. So this will also be my first National Fish Forum as well. And I'll add the abstract submission link and websites and things like that in the notes.
Yeah, I
mean, Anna, are you submitting for that one?
No, I want to see what it's all about first. I think I listened to a quarterly call a couple weeks ago, and led by the same group, and it seems fairly technical in terms of the scope and the types of discussions they're having. So it's for me, it's good to stay in touch with it, but I don't have anything to contribute at this time. Maybe next year.
Wes, were you going to say something?
Oh, I was just going to say the last record I could find was 2014, and there's PDF of the proceedings, and yeah, it's very pertinent to what we do.
Right.
Just from all the different state programs. So
I think it's very advisory focused.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. One other thing I wanted to alert the group to is that the San Francisco Bay Regional Monitoring Program is one of the places where in California where we have been looking at PFAS in fish and have a pretty good data set. We generated data most recently in 2019. In our 2019 sampling, we sampled the bay every 5 years. I say we because I'm the lead scientist for the RMP. And just recently, we got funding to go into our archives and do a more thorough analysis of the samples available from 2019. Initially, with limited budget, we only did 16 samples, but we're going back and doing about 30 or 40 more and really fill out the data set for PFAS and bay fish. So I just wanted to put that on people's radar. I think we've gotten the results back from the lab, so we're close to being able to communicate about the results from that. And we do see, with the limited data that we've collected so far since 2009, we do see levels that are persisting in the bay at in the range where other states have established thresholds and advisories. So it's probably something that it's going to be growing into more concern as we get more information. Okay. Any questions on the updates? Or any other updates that anybody has? Yes, John.
Hey, thank you. So I just want to provide a quick update on the Byte 23. I know that it seems to me that this group is more focused on the inland, but since you mentioned SFEI's RMP for the Bay, I just want to highlight that for the Byte 23, the plan right now, because it's going to be an off year for sport fish, so it's not the fish that directly impacted the safe to eat, but there are two components. One is the trawfish that could be analyzed for pollutants, and there seems to be good traction for a shellfish study that there is broad interest, so that the shellfish could be analyzed for indicator bacteria, pathogen, and potentially some CECs as well, including PFAS, if everything moves on as planned. But you know, of course, the resources are still being discussed and negotiated. So probably in the near future, we or SCORP could provide an update on this one. It seems to be sort of in line with this group. The other sort of a quick update is on the bacteria summit that happened last month. I know that Anna, Nick, and Amanda attended. So a part of that summit was to talk about the safe to eat sort of a shellfish issue. Look like, you know, this is a topic that will require probably continued discussion because it's quite a difficult issue. So just want to highlight these two quick updates. Thank you.
Thanks, Sean. Just to add to those, for BITE 2023, just so folks know, our harmful algal bloom, swamp harmful algal bloom team and myself have been in communication regarding the shellfish study and are kind of part of those side discussions. And yeah, for the bacteria summit, I attended, and it was a very interesting summit, not as much focus on shellfish as I was hoping for, but it sounds like there might be, as you mentioned, future conversations about that.
Yeah, we were in the same discussion group. Anna. Yeah. Very good perspectives.
Well, thank you for that update. And we haven't been monitoring shellfish in the stew lately, but it's due to lack of resources. It's not because it's outside of the scope of assessing bioaccumulation impacts in the state. And the idea of getting an update from SCORP as that BITE monitoring moves forward sounds great. So thank you.
And then just quickly before we move on to kind of close the loop and connect the dots on all that, the reason why we're keeping an ear on shellfish is because our program is really trying to be intentional on incorporating equity into our activities. Part of that is through the realignment, and something that has come up through that process and elsewhere is the need to better understand the safety of consuming shellfish for subsistence and tribal and cultural purposes. So that's like closing the loop on all the things. Thanks.
Great. Okay, any other updates or things to share, questions before we move on? Anything in the chat?
Yeah, so John just added for the shellfish component of BITE 23, if it moves forward, it will likely have a harmful algal bloom microcystin component.
Right.
And domoic acid, sorry.
Okay. On to the next item, and that's talking about how things have gone in 2022. So we're at the end of the field season, and going to get a report from the field team and just talk about progress in general. So
oh, that's a beautiful pitch, Gary. So this is Billy.
yeah, go ahead, Billy.
So it was a good year, you know, we were able to collect all our sites, and we had a little bit of challenges like normal, but we ended up with collecting all our sites. We had struggles in the rivers, so we did 2 lakes for Region 9, and then 2 rivers for Region 9 realignment. And the rivers were very difficult for us. I know Chad jumped out there and recon the locations to access the water, and helped us kind of track down owners of the land to get in. But anytime we got close to the water, we encountered homeless people, and just it was really difficult to get on the water. Low water levels kind of made it tough to put boats on the water. We had one site that had probably about a 5-foot drop down to the water, and carrying like a 60-pound generator and lifting it down there was a little bit difficult and slightly impossible. But so we struggled at the rivers, but we did well at the lakes. And then we did 6 marine sites that went really well. We had some storms come through that made it difficult to beach seine, but hook and line and beach seining were our primary methods that were effective for that. We were able to actually pull fish, similar species throughout the sites, which is really great, and kind of ended up with more in some locations, which helped out for variety purposes for the tribes to pick and choose which ones they would like analyzed. So that went really well for Region 9. We did have a red tide situation in Region 3 that made diving very difficult. And so we did, I think, 5 sites for Region 3, and mostly beaches and piers. And I'd have to just a special shout out for Scott. Scott Lucas is one of our field crew guys, and he just was always out there. He was like the first to jump out and pull that beach seine around every time. And he's kind of the tank, you know. He just pull that thing around through a bunch of algae and waves and currents, and a real rock star. So special shout out for him. But yeah, and then everybody just put a lot of effort into it. It's very difficult to collect sometimes on those beaches, and then the red tide, the visibility went to nothing a lot of times. So that kind of reduced our ability to pull fish that way. But we were able to get about 158 fish for those 9 sites, so it was pretty good. Or sorry, 200 fish for the 5 sites. Overall, I think it was a good year. It was always a struggle for access and things like that. People seem to be a little bit more reluctant to get into to give us access to the land. I don't know if it's COVID or the political climate or what, but that always seemed to be a little bit more difficult this year than last year. So, but that's kind of a general overview of what we did.
Great, thanks, Billy, and thanks to everybody. You're all rock stars, and always do a great job of getting what we send you out there to get, and dealing with all these different aspects of the apocalypse lately. Now adding red tides to the list of drought and fires and everything else.
It was pandemic. One thing that was kind of interesting, we did with Diablo Canyon, we collect mussels out there, and with those heat waves that we were having, it was September, or I forget exactly when it was, but it was really hot, and we actually saw mussels just cooking out on the rocks. They were completely open, and they were just rotting. So it definitely, that high temperature impacted quite a few spots. So we ended up having a problem with the temperatures as well.
Well, we've got slides to go into some of the details as well. So we'll take a look at that. And I got this from an email you sent a few weeks ago, Billy.
Yeah.
And not only did they sample our sites, but they did 32 lakes for EPA, and Billy reported that because of the high temperatures and more restrictive limits on when you can electrofish, which is the main way we get fish in lakes. That more than half the lakes were too warm for electrofishing. And they're gonna, do whatever they can to get our samples with other techniques going forward. But this is something that's gonna have an impact on what we're doing out there.
Yeah, definitely. We're measuring the surface water for those temperatures. So, if you have a real hot summer, that's going to, even if the core temperature of the water body is still cold, that surface temperature jumps up pretty quick. And so that's what we're looking at. And it definitely impacts our ability to shock.
Yeah, this photo, I think it's showing a burned area, isn't it?
Yeah, well, just up there, I guess upstream from there, there's a burn. Trying to think of the burn, but we've been doing quite a bit of bioassessment in fire zones. So we have sites that were previously sampled for bioassessment, and then we come back in after the fire and look at the recovery of the stream. So we've been doing quite a bit of that work.
Yeah. I'm just was just thinking this photo showing not only the drought but the fire as well.
Yep, double whammy.
Yep. Okay, so some of the details, and this is more for reference than to go through in detail here, but this figure shows it's a map taken from the sampling plan and shows all the sites that were being considered, but the arrows show the sites that we could actually sample within the budget that was available. So the mix of river, lake, and ocean sites. So just a little more detail on what Billy was saying. All the collections are complete, the section's in progress. Collections on invertebrates are still in the works by Region 9. The metals have been submitted for the earlier collections, and the organics haven't been shipped yet. Anything to add, Autumn, or?
No, I just want to say that all of the fish that we collected have now been authorized for the lab to get working on. Those are pretty extensive because we are doing them whole body. So it basically takes all of our lab capacity to do one sample. And so while dissections will be kind of slow, we are making good progress, I feel like. And I'm really encouraged by the fact that our teams have really pulled through here. And we do have those metals results and metalloids results submitted for everything that was collected and authorized up until this week. So I think that's pretty extraordinary, and I want to shout out to all of them. And then I'm hoping to get an organic shipment somewhere probably later this month or early December. I want to make sure that Access has that, but I'm trying to balance, the number of shipments with the samples and to give them enough time to actually analyze. So I don't want to just ship them a handful. So that's all.
Thanks. And Chad, can you say a word or two about the invert collections?
Sure. Thanks to Autumn and the team for helping with all this. It's not an easy coordination effort. We're going to start invert collections next week, and we're going to be targeting oysters and mussels at a subset of the sites, and then later on this winter doing lobster collections at some of the sites.
Great. Okay, the rivers. So this is we did a few sites for rivers to support the Central Valley Rivers TMDL effort that we were talking about earlier. Here's a map showing the sites and status. All the collections and dissections are complete except for the fish hatchery. What's the status on that, Autumn?
So the plan is to get salmon on the 10th of this month. And then if the fish hatchery is willing to give the steelhead, that won't be until January. The last time we did this, I don't remember what year it was, but they did not give us steelhead. So we're really at their mercy here.
It's kind of based on the returns too. They don't want to give us a viable steelhead.
Right.
And then the analyses and organic sample status is the same for this and for the Region 3 project that's coming up next.
All right, Region 3, here's a map showing the stations. Again, Billy talked about this earlier, but here's some of the details. So same status. It's
For
nice
this
to
one, I will say that everything, all of the collections and dissections are almost complete. I think I authorized the last 3 dissections yesterday, so those will be done fairly quickly.
Great, and it's always good to get photos from you guys from out in the field. So Autumn sent me a few and I popped them in here. Okay, any comments or questions on 2022?
Jay, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
With the Region 3 project, is it going to be an issue because Region 3 is using a project name that doesn't really differentiate the project year right now? If you look at that, it says Region Award 3 _SS_ bog. I'm wondering how hard it's going to be for you guys to pull that data later, because you won't be able to differentiate the year with the project code.
Let me chime in here, Jay. I think the original purpose of this was to assess all of this with the coastal work, which we're not even going to be collecting that for another couple of years and finishing this latest round. So I really don't think it's a problem, because even though the project code does not have a year associated, there are certainly dates associated with each of the collections. And the project code as a whole should be assessed with the coastal data.
I just want to make sure that we think about that.
I appreciate that, trying to avoid confusion
later on.
Yeah. Thanks. Melissa?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify the reason for that project code was because this was meant to be a Region 3 special study. That's what the SS stands for, because we were also trying to, I guess, essentially work on targeting places where we felt that there was subsistence fishing occurring, and this was kind of happening alongside the realignment efforts early in the process for that. And so the plan was to do this over multiple years when funding was available, and so we didn't necessarily want to give the project code specific year dates, but we are aware of that, and this will, unfortunately for now, be the last year that we have sampled. So 2020 through 2022, these were requests that were specifically made by our region that were outside of the normal bog panel. So that's why we gave it a specific project code to indicate that it was a special study that was meant to target a specific purpose. So just background for all you.
Yeah, thanks. It's a pretty unique combination of Region 3 and bog, so I don't think we'll get confused, but I appreciate the thought, Jennifer. Okay, anything else? All right, I think we're ready to move on to the next item, and we're doing pretty good on time. So next up is 2023 and the sampling plan and related items. So I have not sent out the sampling plan. We're gonna talk about it today. It's a very short and sweet document. And after today, we sort of finalize our list of water bodies that we want to include, then that's kind of the main thing in this sampling plan. So I'll send it out probably on Monday for review, and we'll talk about the timeline for that. So the priorities for this sampling year coming up is to do the 5th panel of the Bass Lake sampling, and that'll complete the statewide, the first round of statewide sampling of the 190 Bass Lakes. And we're faced, it's always been a challenge to kind of make things work with our budget, and the budget is, there's still more things we want to do than we have budget for. But a priority is to do this panel consistently with what we did in panels 1 through 4, so that we have this full set of for all the panels. And then the next priorities were, as usual, we'd like to provide all the data that they need for advisory. So we prioritize filling the requests that they make for additional data at each of the water bodies. And then where possible, we include other water bodies and add them to the list for sampling. So here's the map of the panel 5 lakes spread across the state. Again, it was a random draw of lakes. Each panel was a random draw out of the pool of 190 lakes. And the randomization helps us with tracking statewide trends over time. So the regular STU members have sort of seen this process for this year and in previous years, where we developed this big table that lists the lakes from panel 5, and then we fill in details on what OEHA would like to get from each lake and other requests from the regions. We keep track of everything in this table. It's a Google sheet, and I just took an excerpt from it, and just to remind people of that this is what we're using, and for those who are new, kind of so you understand the process as well. And this information will all be in the sampling plan, but you can, this gives you a taste of it here. So the kind of key remaining question to be finalized is how far we can go with adding on the OEHA requests, and then what's left for additional water bodies, if anything. And the punchline is, we think that there's not really much left for additional water bodies. And Autumn and Anna can help fill in details after I go through this, but this is the amount available for sampling and analysis in 2023. The core lake design requires 594,000. So that's the sampling, the approximately 35 lakes. I don't remember the exact number, but the average is around 35. Doing the mercury analysis, doing PCB analysis on select few of the lakes, and sometimes doing organochlorine pesticides. And then there was that column in that table excerpt I showed with all the OEHA add-ons for additional species and additional analyses. That totaled 50,000 approximately. So potentially left for additional water bodies is 68,000, but there are other needs that we're balancing here for, we need to make sure we have enough money for the coast in 2024, and that the budget is tight for that. And then the funding for ASC and Moss Landing also is part of this overall picture, and we've been sorting through that as well. So the bottom line is that we think that we need basically all of this for 2024, and ASC needs some additional funds from what is currently on the books for us. But we want to talk about this. There were 3 lakes on the list that have been recently sampled, so we excluded those. And just want to make sure everybody's okay with that. And then Anderson Lake was excluded due to extreme low water levels. I'm going to go through the next slide, and then we'll come back to this.
Jay, I just want to chime in about Anderson. I don't know if everybody's aware, but they actually are keeping it low because of the risk of flooding due to earthquake. So I don't think that'll ever be wetted again. At least not in the near future.
Okay, thanks. So we put out the table, and as usual, we asked the regions if there are other water bodies that you would like to get sampled if possible. So this was the list of additional requests that we got. A couple from Carrie Austin, a few from Heather Boyd in Region 8, and then a couple from Jeff Gerasi. So it would be good to know if it doesn't look like we're going to be able to make the budget cover some of these. It'd be good to know if anybody thought that this was a high pain level associated with that, or that it's super important to sample these. It's good to have these lists and know what the needs are from the regions, and we keep them in mind when we are doing future sampling. We are, just as a reminder, we'll talk more about this. We're going to, after we finish panel 5, we're going to do a big re-evaluation of the bioaccumulation program in general. So it's always good to know what the needs are, and so we can try to figure out ways to meet them. So we'll come back here, but for now I want to go back to this slide and see if Anna or Autumn want to add anything before we have some discussion.
Yeah, just a quick note about the nuance of our budget. So this, and Autumn, please feel free to jump in here if I'm misspeaking, but the 713 K is a reflection of, I think, 2 fiscal years, but we sample in annual years, like calendar years. And so while it looks like we have more than enough to sample for our monitoring for 2023, the lakes, we're also thinking about, as Jay mentioned, the coast and what we'll be sampling in 2024. So just to note the complexity of contracts, we've had some note in the chat about that it's a weird world, that contracting world, and we're doing the best that we can with the budget that we have, but we aren't going to be able to do everything that we want to, but we want to hear, as Jay mentioned, about what the needs are so that we can document them and keep those in mind as we move forward. So even though we might not be able to do add-ons or additional water bodies this year, we still want to hear what the need is so that if an opportunity arises, we can take advantage of that, and thinking about future work and priorities.
One other thing I want to mention, sorry, Autumn. Another reason that it's good to know the needs and to prioritize those additional water bodies is that we often, sometimes lakes are not sampleable on our list, and sometimes we don't get all the fish that we want. So there might be money left after we actually go out and try to sample. So it's another reason that it's good to know what the needs are. So go ahead, Autumn.
That's actually a good segue into what I was going to say, and just that the total budget available for 2023 is still in flux because of, we're still dissecting, and so funds may become available if we don't have tissue for certain analyses, or, for example, right now I didn't plan for us to actually be able to get steelhead for the Region 5 rivers. So if we do, that number is going to change. So, don't go thinking that this is set in stone, because, as Anna said, we do support multiple projects out of the same fiscal year of funding. And so everything is all intrinsically linked.
And then it looks like Lauren raised her hand.
Yeah, I just had a quick question about the realignment project, because I definitely have a few reservoirs that tribes are interested in getting more data from, but I'm not going to put that on this side if Region 5 isn't going to be, one of the next regions to be sampled. So I don't know if I'm stealing your thunder for later or any announcements, but yeah, I definitely have a few on the list that I would be interested in adding specifically for tribes.
Yeah, so thanks for bringing that up. So the realignment budget is separate from this budget. I don't have any major announcements on which region is coming next just yet. We're still waiting to hear back from tribes. That'll come out in December. And it's also important to note that the additional requests for 2023, we had a deadline of September 1st, so we could do permits and everything like that. So definitely keep things in mind for the realignment. For just speaking to you, Lauren, specifically, but to other regional folks, is that there might be an opportunity to sample outside of this restricted budget, assuming, as you mentioned, Lauren, that the Realignment Advisory Committee, which is comprised of tribes and community-based organization representatives, also see those spaces as a high priority. So that doesn't really answer your question, but yeah.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that I want to add any links right now to this, but I'm just trying to think of, ways to gather that data if we're not, a chosen region, but to still kind of work towards that, the eventual outcome of having monitoring in Region 5. And it's something we've brought up before about Region 5 is rather large, and maybe it will take multiple sessions, but yeah, if there is extra funding in this venue, I know that there are some reservoirs that would want to be, that tribal members want to get data from.
Yeah, that's so great. And, we'd love to record that some way, and just, reiterating what Jay was alluding to before, in 2024, we're going to do a big reevaluation and reassessment of what we want. The program's been around for 15 years. We want to think about what our next 15 years look like. And so keeping track of what those different locations are and the priorities are for all regions is something that we'll want to be talking about in 2024. Again, doesn't do anything for 2023, but thinking longer term.
Great, thank you.
All right. Anything in the chat, Anna?
Yeah, so someone noted that, actually, can you go back to the next slide with the list? No, okay, someone mentioned possibly taking Hernandez off of the list due to water levels, but they're gonna reach out and get back to us on the reality of that. I don't know if the person that direct messaged me, I didn't want to say your name, you wanted it to be private.
I just didn't want to take time out of the meeting, but yeah, I apologize. I didn't review the panel. I've been training new field teams since July, and so it's just been madness anyway. But I think I talked to some folks at Hernandez before, and I just wanted to reach out to them again to see if it's even a viable reservoir to sample. So I will touch base on those Region 3 reservoirs and get back to you.
Great. So back to this list, it'd be good to know if any of these water bodies are like very urgent, gotta have type needs, or are they more like nice to have needs? And so that, what would be, if we could do another lake or two, what would be at the top of the list? Maybe Chad, I don't know if you know the situation with Lake Hodges. Carrie made that request because there's an oxygenation project going on there, and it would be helpful to get data. I just see Sarah's raising her hand, so maybe you can talk about that.
Yeah, I know Carrie was interested in getting some host project oxygenation data to look at, how it might impact mercury, relative to some of the projects that she was working on. So I don't know, in terms of critical timing on that, what that entailed from her perspective.
Sarah, do you have comment on that?
Sure, yeah, I can. This is Sarah Brower from the City of San Diego Public Utilities Department. We collaborated with Carrie on the pilot study several years ago at Lake Hodges, and we had a couple years of fish tissue data collected prior to oxygenation, but we haven't had any post-oxygenation. The system was installed in March 2020. It's still operational, and it's been operational since March 2020. The water levels have lowered at the reservoir due to some Division of Safety of Dam water level restrictions, but it's still operating. And UC Merced is still studying the mercury in the water column at the reservoir, and recently shared some of their results at the California Lake Management Society meeting just in October. So that's the context. I don't know if you can interpret that as far as time sensitivity, but yeah, we don't have any post data yet.
Well, just kind of based on general principles, I think that does sound time sensitive. This would be a great time to get some fish data 2 years after oxygenation. So that does, seem, not having heard or not knowing much about the other water bodies that have been proposed, there does seem to be some urgency on that one.
Yeah, I just wanted to see if, I believe Heather was on the line.
Yeah.
If she wanted
Yeah,
to
yeah, I'm here. Yeah, no, I think these lakes are just like, we want to know, what the levels are. They have never been sampled. They're small regional park lakes, but we've noticed a lot of fishing going on. And so, maybe this fits more in with that realignment type thing. But these are inland lakes, and yeah, we've never sampled them. So.
Okay. That's super helpful. Thanks, Heather.
And then is Jeff on? I'm not sure. He wasn't on earlier. When we did roll call.
I do a quick skim of the attendance list. I do not see Jeff.
And then just a note on San Pablo, that was another one that Carrie initially requested, but then she learned about when the timing of the installation of the oxygenation was happening, and the timing wasn't going to work in terms of, it's too late for us to go in and look at fish and get valuable information. So we took that off. But that, could be on the radar for future once the oxygenation has been in place for a while.
Jay, this is Chad.
Yeah.
For Lake Hodges, if it's, I'm expecting if it's just mercury sampling for largemouth, the bulk of the cost is going to be for the crew to come down and do the sampling. So if it comes down to that, I'm happy to work with our local CDFW reservoir folks to just basically join them on whenever they're going to do their next POP-S survey and do some collection. Because that would probably save you guys on the actual field work, right?
Yeah, that's the, 80% of the cost, roughly.
Thanks, Chad. Well, if it comes to it, we'll definitely take you up on that.
But yeah, Sarah.
Just quickly, the water level has recently, because of the dam repairs that have been going on, it at times has been below the boat launch ramp level. So just keep that in mind and reach out to the city if boat access is a problem.
Thanks, Sarah. I'd probably just join Matt Lucero whenever he plans to do his next surveys. So I don't know if that's a factor for him or not. I'd have to touch base with him.
So something that we're missing a little bit with Carrie retiring is like a lead advocate, or like, water board PI. Yeah, and that was sort of the impetus of, wanting to get the information from the state for BOG or STU for the statewide program. This seems important to us, but it's not really our area. Is there
specifically for a region 2 representative, Jay?
Or Region 9 or somebody that could, this has implications statewide, which was why Carrie was doing it down in Region 9. Valuable information on the potential effectiveness of control measures relating to the statewide TMDL potentially. So who do we sort of look to as the lead water board, proponent of it?
Well, I'm not going to volunteer myself since I was the other person on it when it was kind of a regional led thing. Right now, I don't have capacity to do all that coordination right now, but I think it would be worthwhile to, I can ask someone at the state board of, is there someone that could attend in that capacity? Because I do know that there are staff on the project at state board. So maybe an invitation to them to come and represent the statewide efforts. And, that would just be another way for them to connect with the regional representatives that could maybe help with some of the sampling or coordination and more of the technical needs for each region. So I'd be happy to do that.
That'd be super helpful, Lauren. Just as some background, also through the realignment process, I'm meeting with our regional board partners and having conversations. Met with Lauren a couple of weeks ago and team to talk about needs and priorities on a regional level. The next step for me was to circle back to the statewide efforts. So yeah, if you could connect me, Lauren, to get to your question, Jay, I'm hesitant to identify an individual for the contact for statewide efforts at this time, just because I know everyone's really stretched thin and doing a lot of things. So, but I'm beginning to have those conversations and trying to identify partners throughout the water boards, but prioritizing the regions at this point.
All right. So yeah, that sounds good. It would be good to make those connections and find out who might be able to play that role. And then, this is sort of the next lake in line if we do free up some funds. So it's all contingent, but well, if Chad's willing to do the sampling, the cost is going to be quite low. So maybe it's not so contingent.
And I mean, I know Lake Hodges is interesting from a research perspective, but from an equity perspective, actually all of the Region 8 lakes are important as well. So I don't just coming from the equity lens from the state board and the bioaccumulation monitoring program, I don't see a clear lead here. We would need to have more conversation about that. And the big if is if we have the budget to even do additional things.
So maybe we just revisit this if there are funds that are freed up.
Yeah, I think that's a good plan.
All right. All right, but we got a lot of good information out on the table regarding these requests. Okay, checking the clock. I'm just going to quickly run through what the document looks like to give you a preview of that and kind of illustrate that it's going to be a quick read when it does go out. So this is to refresh your memory for the 2021 plan. We just did this little update of the original Bass Lakes plan. So now I'm just doing an update of that update and just updating this background text, and then not much else is changing. There's some explanation of what's in here relative to the original 2015 plan. We'll update this table, which is sort of our preliminary long-term plan. That might be I might even just drop this because this is in development, and it's not critical to have it in here. And then these, in the 2021 plan, we just highlighted things that changed from the original, and those are the things in these tables highlighted in yellow. Some of the target lengths changed from the 2015 plan. And one minor change came from me looking at OEHA's protocol document and the lengths that they lay out in there for minimum sizes for species. And just a quick note on that, there's one thing I'm changing, very minor tweak, that this range used to go to 450, but the minimum legal size for striped bass is 457. So I adjusted that. That's very minor. But I looked at OEHA's minimum sizes and compared them to our ranges, and our sizes are larger than OEHA's minimums. But I think, that's good. We're targeting legal size fish that are above, they're in the range that OEHA is interested in getting. I think we should keep the size ranges that we have for consistency. And even though they're larger than OEHA's minima, it's more conservative from a risk assessment perspective to be looking at larger fish. So I don't think we need to change things based on the minima that OEHA published, except for this one case for striped bass. So I did consider the new OEHA document. So that's really about it. And then there are these diagrams that show the design that are not changing. So and then the main thing is we'll have the list of water bodies in there that this is just kind of a placeholder, and I'll put in the final information from that big table. So that's a quick preview of what this document is going to be looking like. Now I need to go back to the right.
Jay, this is Autumn. Us Moss Landing folk need to bow out.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Let us know if you need anything via email. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, y'all.
Thanks a lot. Okay, so
Right.
what was that? somebody wasn't on mute, I guess. So here's the timeline for things. So the permit has gone in, the permit request for the fishing permit. We're discussing the plan today. I'm going to send it out and ask for comments by the 18th, and then I'll finalize it. Meanwhile, the state board is writing the QAPP, and we'll have that complete and posted in January. Kickoff meeting February, March, and monitoring in April.
I think the only revision I would change is April-ish. Start the beginning of monitoring is always generally flexible. So
yeah. All right, and then we're going to do overviews of 2024 and beyond, but just what's the coming attractions for 2023. We're going to again do this panel 5 sampling. I mentioned earlier the panel 4 report. We've got data in hand already, so the draft and final for that will be something that we're working on in 2023. And then there's a lot of activity. It's kind of a quiet year with just one data report coming out on the core program, but still a lot going on with the realignment. And I'll let you run through those.
yeah, so as we talked about a little bit earlier, we'll be continuing and finishing the San Diego realignment next year, as well as preparing for the next realignment region, which will start in 2024. Again, which specific region that will be announced in December of this year. I'm going to continue our statewide tribal engagement effort, just to continue to build partnerships and relationship with our tribal government partners throughout the state. Again, in our tribal land acknowledgement, that's close to 200 tribes, so potentially 200 partners, right? That takes time. We've talked about a tribally centered training series in past meetings that is still moving forward. We're working on that with Sherry Norris of SIA, the California Indian Environmental Alliance. Did I get that right?
Yep, that's right.
Great, thank you. And so we're, developing content, and we'll be pushing that out as soon as we can. There's no specific timeline on that yet, just because we're figuring things out, and all of us are strapped for time and resources. I'm also hoping to do a large web revamp of our safety work group and bioaccumulation monitoring program pages. It's a little in the weeds, but we're using super old templates and trying to get a little bit more modern and easy to use and find things. And again, that's something that I've wanted to do, but it's also something that has been identified as a need through the San Diego realignment process of making it easier for folks to find the things they need without having to dig through 3 bajillion web pages. So I will be working on doing that. And when it comes to the safety work group web pages, we'll keep you all in the loop as those changes happen. I think that's it. Back to you, Jay.
All right, so that's the end of this item, unless anybody's got questions or comments. So we're 1 minute behind, not too bad. So we're scheduled for a break now, 10-minute break. And then we'll have our thrilling conclusion.
Yeah, so we'll go on a break and meet y'all back here at 11:11.
Yeah, confetti is always good. Great. Well, it's 11:12, so we should probably move on. Okay, so item 5 is just looking towards 2024 and beyond. This is going to go quickly. So just for information and to get any feedback, mainly for information. So we've been talking about this a little bit, but for 2024, we're planning on completing the coastal survey finally, by finishing the North Coast. So another item is for panel 5, we'll have the results in 2024, so we can do a draft and final data report. And I am, there will be an interpretive report on the full 5-panel data set, but for consistency with the first 4 panels, and for documentation of the data set, I think these data reports are really valuable. So we'll do the same kind of data report on panel 5 that we've been doing for the previous 4, and then the interpretive report will be a separate product. And that's going to be a big effort. It's a big data set, and so this will be something that the review panel can sink their teeth into, that I can sink my teeth into in terms of analyzing the data, looking at trends over the 10-year period, and just kind of doing a thorough evaluation of what we've learned. I don't think I can do the draft and final in 2024. So just saying we'll do the draft and then finish the final in 2025. And then I think it'll be especially valuable to do this after at least we've got the draft interpretation of the Bass Lake data, to do this assessment that we've been talking about for a while now of the long-term priorities and reevaluating the program overall, considering a reduced core monitoring budget, realignment priorities, equity and management priorities, regional board priorities, including these needs for sampling specific water bodies that we've been talking about, OEHA's needs, and incorporating leveraging of other efforts into our planning, like the National Lakes Assessment. And then for 2025, we'll finish the Bass Lake Interpretive Report, and there will be for the coast, the precedent is that we don't do separate data reports. So there will be one report that kind of serves both purposes, that on the overall coast survey, all the entire coast. And again, that'll be a big effort. And so I'm thinking that we'll do a draft in 2025 and then finish that in 2026. All these estimates are, approximate. And then we're planning to do some more realignment sampling in 2025 after the planning effort, which all along we're, Anna's going to continue doing her outreach and planning on the realignment work. So Anna, anything to add?
Nick, you mentioned something in the chat. Do you want to say more about that?
Which part? The lawyer that prioritized the priorities.
The prioritize the priorities.
I don't know. It seemed like there was a lot of priorities that are involved here. And,
yes.
Yeah, prioritize that's going to be kind of a challenge.
Yeah, a lot of them in my mind are kind of equal. The only thing that I think goes to the top 2 things are the reduced monitoring budget and the equity piece.
Equity, yeah,
and those really inform everything else. But everything else is really equal in my mind, and it's not a huge gap between the 2 at the top and everything else. I don't know, Jay, what your thoughts are.
Well, to me, this is not really, it's not really for me to say. It's for the regions and the agencies to express their priorities.
Yeah.
I mean, I can talk about the, you know, as we look at the options, I can talk about the impact of our ability to assess status and trends and things like that.
Yeah.
I had just a quick question I should know the answer to. Is all of the funding coming from Swamp, or does OE have chip in resources since the data is used for their advisory?
Everything comes from Swamp, and Swamp also sends funds to OEHA.
Okay.
And that's separate from the programmatic budget.
Okay, thanks.
And one other thing to consider, is there any other chance of other funding streams coming along in the next few years?
There's nothing certain yet. I know Allie, who leads all of the Swamp programs, is working on that issue.
Right.
But I don't have any updates or ability to say, share any great news about our budgetary situation. But from what I have heard, you know, we still have some hope in terms of a brighter, more funded future, but the extent of that is still uncertain.
Yeah, unfortunately, you can't celebrate until the governor's ink dries.
So it's a contrast.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we are working on it actively.
Any questions or thoughts from the group?
I think just before we move on, and this is, I think, more a message for the folks that aren't on this call that hopefully watch the recording and review the notes, but just to note that we're going to be making some hard decisions in 2024. And we really want to hear from folks before we make those decisions. And so, you know, we talked about it earlier with Lauren's example and the Region 5 example in terms of identifying those priorities areas for the regional boards, also for our OEHA partners. And I'm interested in also hearing from our tribal partners when we do this work and figuring out what partnership might look like with the equity and tribal lens. So, you know, giving you a 2-year heads up or a one plus year heads up, we are going to be having these conversations. We want you all to be involved. So please begin thinking about how you want to contribute to those conversations, what priorities are top of mind for you or your management, and really be ready to bring those to the conversation.
Yeah, I think as we plan our meeting agendas, you know, you and I should like prompt, have items on this early on so that we get people to start thinking about it and give them a lot of time to gather information.
Yeah.
So and overall, 2023 is going to be relatively quiet year, you know, not a lot going on, but 2024 is going to be a very busy one. A lot going on there. Okay, I think that's about it for this item.
Yeah, I think if you can go to the next slide. Yeah, so we are just wanting to touch base on planning for next year's meetings. As many of you know, over the past couple of years, we've been meeting quarterly over Zoom for a couple of hours in the morning on the last Wednesday of the month in January, April, July, and October. We've had some shifts to accommodate schedules and scheduling conflicts of key presenters. This seems to be working. We always have things to talk about every quarter. And so I think if you go to the next slide, Jay, We are proposing to continue this general process over the next year. So having meetings on the last Wednesday of the month in January, April, July, and October. And we've talked about why we selected those months back in, I think, 2021. And that's to accommodate, timelines for permits and kickoff meetings, and making sure, the folks in the field can attend the meetings that they need to prepare in April or report out in July and October. Mornings seem to work well for folks, and we'll continue to record the meetings. So unless someone has a visceral objection to this general plan, we'll move forward, and I'll send out meeting invitations to kind of hold that time on your calendar. As you may have noticed, we like to hold 9:30 to 12:30 just as a large chunk, but like we will today, we'll probably end early and we'll adjust the time of the actual meetings as needed. So to give more time back to people's calendars. I think that's all I had to report on that. The specific meeting dates are listed on the slide there. And are there any, do people have feelings about, about this plan? I saw one thumbs up from someone.
That was me. I think it's working out great.
Okay, great. 2 thumbs up. Great. Well, last call for any, again, visceral objections to this. And, we also acknowledge that folks have a lot going on and might not be able to attend every meeting, but we do record them. And, if you're presenting, then we can work around your schedule and shift. And we like to give a lot of advance notice when we make those changes as much as we possibly can. Okay, then I will get those out. The next item is to think about what we want to talk about in January. Here's a general list of some ideas. Hopefully we can have a guest speaker. We'll kind of review the final monitoring plan in preparation for the kickoff meetings. If we have more to talk about in terms of the monitoring and analysis update for this year, we can do that. We're going to keep pinging you on 2024 and beyond. Maybe Jay and I can get together and think about the specific prompts to help make that thinking process a little bit more directed for folks. A reminder of the meetings that year, but are there other items or topics that folks would like to hear about, present on in January or any other time next year?
One other thing I want to mention, I'm not sure if I updated Chad on this, but Chad suggested getting Colin Eaglesmith, USGS, to present, and he wasn't available for today. But I think he'll be available in January, and we've already talked about that. I saw Dave Krabenhoft, his colleague, present at the Delta Tributaries Mercury Council on that work in Hell's Canyon, and it does, I would be very interested in seeing what data Colin has, because they've done some very thorough studies of mercury in that reservoir.
Yeah, we also have Nick in the chat mentioned hearing from the bite would be good too for January.
An update on their plan?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You had also mentioned earlier about a WEHA update.
Right. Yeah. We'll check with them on, their advisory development planning, and if the timing's good, we can do that in January if that works for them.
Yeah, I'll bring that back and discuss, and we can be in touch before the meeting in January.
Great.
And, you know, we're flexible if January 25th or whatever it was a no-go, but a future meeting works for any of our speakers. We don't want to make you feel like you're locked into January or bust, Wes.
So I don't know if it's critical for the next meeting, but it would be interesting to me to hear an update on implementation of AB 762, the advisory postings, just to see how that's been going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually have a question. This is Lauren. I actually have a question about that. I've been receiving a number of emails from reservoir owners indicating that they need to coordinate with the regional boards for grant money regarding AB 762. So I don't know if this is the right venue, but I guess if any other regional folks have actually coordinated with those people, I'm just not sure what coordination is actually needed, or you know, I want to help them get grant money for posting, but I'm just not sure what kind of the minimum is. So Chad, if you've you know, communicated with anyone or any other regional folks, please reach out to me so that I can best help them get some grant funding.
Yeah, thanks, Lauren. Harry?
Just wondering about the need for 40 minutes of discussion of the 2022 sampling update in January. I thought we had sort of covered that, but maybe there's a lot more to say than I would expect.
No, this is just a copy and paste job. So those times are not.
Oh, okay.
They're not accurate.
I was making sure people were paying attention. You passed, Harry.
And Harry always pays attention. So another thing, if folks are interested, if we've got the San Francisco Bay PFAS data ready, I could present those.
Yeah, I think that'd be great.
Yes, please.
That's fantastic. That's the longest list we've been able to develop together every time we've done this. So that's a great start. And if folks have other things that come up over the holidays, you're like, man, I really wish we'd hear from Anna and Jay about this thing. You know where to find us. So drop us a line, send us an email, and we can incorporate those requests into our future meetings. Next, please. Cool. So as we like to do, we like to review our action items. Oh, and it looks like the version of your slides didn't update, Jay. But yeah, so I will read off the version that I have for item 2, and then these will be
you want to share your screen?
Oh, sure, that works. So Jay mentioned completing the sum contracts with the review panel, getting comments, and then finalizing the 2019 Lakes report. We also talked about following up with SQUIRP about the Southern California bite data. For sampling and analysis, MPSL, Moss Landing are gonna continue to rock it and process samples and do what they do. Chad and others are going to collect invertebrate samples over the coming weeks and months for the realignment. And then for the final monitoring plan for 2023, a reminder that the review and comments are due by November 18th. Jay, I think you mentioned you were going to send a version out next week. Did I hear that right?
Yep.
Cool. So you'll get that next week. We'll provide instructions on how to provide comments to Jay by November 18th. Jay will then finalize the monitoring plan by the end of November. I will post it on our web pages and we'll distribute the link in December. Jay mentioned our Swamp IQ team is working on revising and merging the programs, quality assurance program plans, or QAPs. And so that brand spanking new whole shebang QAP should be ready in January. I will work on scheduling kickoff meetings with folks that need to be involved. Melissa mentioned reaching out to Hernandez regarding water levels and then following back up with us on whether that water body should be removed from the priority list for 2023. And then I will be circling back with Lauren. And we also had a note in the chat about following up with Lori Weber and team, the integrated report team, to find statewide STU contacts or representatives. So I'll be doing that as well. Did I miss anything? That was a long list. Did I miss anything for the monitoring plan in terms of action items?
Well, not for the monitoring plan, but Wes had the action item to check about an agenda item on advisory development plans.
Great. Yeah, we'll be sure to add that into the action items list that goes out. Thanks, Jay. So planning for 2024, again, begin thinking about and documenting long-term needs and priorities, and be ready to chat about priorities in 2024. I'll send out calendar invitations for next year's meetings. They'll all be on Zoom. Oh yeah, Nick.
Oh wait, I was just saying another action item might be worth maybe just reaching out to EPA. I know they divvied up Terry's significant duties into like multiple people, but yeah, just finding who should be the person from EPA attending this. I think that'd be valuable.
Yeah, I think that's definitely on Allie's list. And just to note, I met with some EPA representatives during the tribal conference a couple weeks ago, and so I'll be following up with them to figure out partnership and things like that. Yeah, Harry?
Maybe I missed it, but I didn't see mentioned in the action items the panel 4 Bass Lake's report. Is that in there? I thought that was for 2023 review and finalizing.
Yeah, so that might be is that the 2019 report, Jay?
No, that's the 2021. So
2021.
That's kind of, yeah. It's kind of a bigger, broader item, but it's definitely on our action item list. It's definitely on my to-do list.
Yeah, so we can add a little bit more on that in the notes. Thanks for bringing that up, Harry. So I'll send out calendar invitations through our email list for 2023 meeting dates. Please feel free to forward that to your friends who you think will be interested, and encourage them to sign up for our email list so they can get updates as the calendar invitations are updated and agendas are added and things like that. We'll be writing up notes, and I'll post the notes, the presentation, this recording on our meetings page, and we'll send an email out to the work group once all of that is up and ready to go. We talked about folks emailing me or Jay if you have a meeting topic that you want to hear at a future meeting. And with that, we can close unless there's any other lingering questions or thoughts. But just want to thank you all for your engagement this year. We've been doing a lot of things with a lot of partners, and we're busy in the best way, and we look forward to continuing these conversations and partnerships into next year. Anything you want to say, Jay, before we close for 2022?
Well said. Just thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Jay and Anna, for your leadership.
Thank you both.
Our pleasure.
Bye, everyone.
All right.
Thank
I
you.
put some stuff about AB 7062 in the chat for whoever asked.
Okay, awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks, y'all. Take good care.
Have a good weekend.